Alright, I started messing around with this morning based on what I had mentioned to you the other day, but about this beam and eliminating this column here. And I'm just going to run through this quickly, and you can do with it what you will. So what my idea was is to put an LVL on either side of that steel beam. Leave that sloped steel beam in place, put an LVL on either side, and it would take a 14-inch LVL apparently to do that. And then probably replace these trimmers here, but doing that on either side of that steel beam would enable us to eliminate that column. And we don't know exactly what is happening back here, but in any event, if you are to do this, I seriously doubt that they will accept this. You know, if we were to try to notch out a place for that to land, the engineer might tell us differently. They very well might accept this considering the construction of this column. But in the event they don't, we know that we can't run that beam past that because these two steel beams don't align with one another. So that's as far as that gets run. And then we replace this end, the thing that's holding up at the end, replace those two 2x6s with just one piece of lumber, 3.5 by 9.5, and that's notched at the top so that the notches catch the LVLs, and the center of the column continues up to the bottom of that steel beam. So that's all held up at the same end. A similar thing happens back here. These can be something else too. I'll show you a little later on. They don't have to be LSLs. I just wanted something solid. They can be nailed up 2x10s, a couple 2x10s. But there's the two existing steel beams to the best of our knowledge. We don't know how they are bearing on that column. But we would just replace all of that bearing, all of that big chunky column, replace all of that with just our own LSL or whatever right here. If we do this, then it would be best if that were just a solid member. I would think that's the only way it's going to work. As a matter of fact, it might have to be 5.5 this way. And then just pick all of that up at once, the steel beam and these two LVLs. And the last bit on that sort of approach is, I would say, use like some 60-inch straps, steel straps to nail to the side of this. And you wouldn't see this side of the column here because that would be notched out. This would be all LVL here and here. But those straps would go over that LVL and down onto our column material, up over the LVLs, that whole 8.5-inch wide, because it's the LVLs and the steel beam, and then back down again on the other side, and nailed with a bunch of 68 nails in that. And then that becomes your whole structure there, with eliminating this bit here. And you end up with an 18'4" opening, 18'4" wide opening. Now, we can't, like I said, even if we could run this beam like this, we can't, because that steel beam there is in the road, because those don't align, as you know. So in this approach, if we were to try something like this, and it doesn't matter because this takes, in order to go this long span, this 27'2" span, this takes three 18-inch LVLs, which, by the way, these two, which would be about 20 foot long, those two together are about $350. And these three, which is what it would take to take this approach, is about $1,100 out the door after tax. So $350 and $1,100 for those two alternatives in terms of the beam cost, just in terms of the beam cost. But this one has the additional pretty serious headache of both of those steel beams need removed in order for this approach to work. I mean, it does give you a good result, this 27'2" wide room. So now you have a big square, 30, almost 31 by 27 foot big square opening here for the cost and headache of doing that. So that does probably increases the value of this building if it's deemed to be worth it. But I did a little bit more than, well, this is that first approach here with a 14-inch LVL on either side, eliminating the column that's not there now. In other words, keeping it basically just like it is. And the other approach uses 3 of those, removes the steel beam and uses 3 of those, because I know you mentioned it, so I want you to know that what it would take to do that. But this is the lesser approach, just to get rid of that column that's not there now, that's probably going to be required, according, depending on what the engineer says. And then I horsed around a little bit with these bathrooms, this ADA bit back down here in the bathroom area, and I won't spend a lot of time on that. But I began by thinking that this would be more the entrance here, and I quickly got away from that, though, once I started looking at some of these ADA bath requirements and the different things that are possible. This is pretty small here, which I like, and I can work with all of these various specifications they show to come up with something. But I pretty quickly determined that that door is probably better placed over here. This wall is getting rebuilt, and I would think, by the way, that you just rebuilt this with 8-inch cinder block or something like this. And I'm showing these walls, whatever we do inside, I'm showing these walls built so that you can insulate the walls of the bathroom. And then I assume the ceiling of that bathroom would be lowered some, so that just so it's not a 12-foot tall ceiling in this bathroom. So once I moved that door over there, and I really think for the headache it would take, probably you should extend that and put a 30-inch door in here into this janitor's closet, rather than this little bitty 20-inch door. There's just not a lot of room in there, and I don't know what you're going to do with this space here if you situate this new door in its existing opening. So that's what I did over there, just horsing. Like I said, this was all just horsing around this morning for fun, and I took an approach of trying to have a hall down through there as well when I came back to that, and this we were going to lose too much space, I think, with that hall. Now, that said, if you don't do this long beam, that triple beam, that more expensive approach, taking down that steel and putting up that wood, if you don't do that, then this area kind of extends down this way, which is why I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it until we got a little further along. But I did right away think that, the entrance to the whole, because your parking lot's back here too, so the entrance to the whole thing's back here. You would need to have a ramp up to this, an ADA ramp, probably. I mean, they can get in the front, so maybe that's all that matters. But I would think, just to be nice, there would be a ramp coming up here to this door if that becomes the main entrance to this whole area. But I quickly just said, well, the baths are going to be down here, and we're going to figure out how to get the doors in and what we do with this after that. But that's all for now. I look forward to seeing what we can find out about those rafters and that steel beam here in a couple hours. Take it easy.